First of all, it was fire. Second of all, this song is part of upcoming Chronosphere release, so if you're up to thrash metal, you definitely want to check these guys out cause they're so damn awesome. I'll put links to their socials in the description. Third of all, I'm gonna teach you all how to achieve this kind of sound, so let's do the shit. Just as always, here we have regular ass double track, 2 guitars, pan 91% left and 91% right, routed to guitars bus and that bus routed to pre-master bus. Both of them guitars has exactly same processing model, so we'll review only one of them. First thing in chain, TSE 808 Screamer, y'all know how we do the shit, bit of volume and lots of tone to make it tight and dry, check this out. Next step, bias with my custom amp called Demonized. Matter of fact, it looks good. Here's the settings. Cab section is bypassed and you all already know what this means, don't you? Keyfair impulse loader with my custom impulse of 4x12 cab. Check this out. Just as always, I'm gonna share this impulse and whole mixing template with you all at the end of this guide, so you can get the shit and start sounding good, making fire mixtapes and sell them shits until you become sold out and get them haters but also get them monies and bitches and all kind of swag or some shit. But listen though, after this stuff both of them guitars goes to guitars bus and first thing here is an EQ. Low pass filter for them boom boom shits, plus we remove bit of that boxy mids which conflicted with snare drum a bit. Second EQ. Dealing with them whistles on highs and also high-end fizz. Stereo imager to add some of that stereo to guitars. NLS channel at the end. This thing is kind of emulation of analog console saturation, which means that you get some of that character of real big ass mixing console, so it sounds awesome and less digital. And before we'll finally go for bass, let's do before and after for guitars and context of mix. Sounds awesome. As you can see, this time we work with live bass, so check out what I did here. These two channels is exactly same DI, but with different processing models. First one is just direct recording and second one is distorted part of bass. Both of them goes to bass bus when gets lots of glue and compression, so tones kind of integrates into each other and become one massive bass. So let's start from bass DI. Very first thing here is an EQ with general boost on highs. Second EQ is kind of same thing, but more detailed because of two bands. And here is the last one, just to get rid of some of that boxy resonance. Bass drive. First thing here is bias with custom bass drive preset. Here is the settings. I know it may be a problem to copy it visually, so you'll find this preset at the attachment too. EQ here to make this channel mid-focused, check this out. Now both of them channels go to bass bus. First thing here is Isotope Ozone 5 exciter to give it some tape saturation and bit of compression. EQ. As you can see, we decrease some of them mids and also wistly high-end resonance. T-Rax Black 76 amplifier. This thing will give us some of that nice ass coloring and about 2 decibels of compression. Check this out. Right after we have this Pro limiter, to really lock dynamics of bass up and avoid it from jumping out of mix. EQ. I know it looks scary as fuck, but for real, there is bunch of drops on problem zones, wide high-end boost and also low cut filter to decrease low-end boomy sounds recovered by exciter. Check this out. EQ again. This time we only get rid of one problem frequency. NLS channel at the end. Notice that we use mic mode. Y'all already know that it gives us some nice ass low end though. Let's do A/B comparison to understand what all of those things does with bass sum in context of mix. After all of them joints, this bus goes to pre-master bus, and there is also just a bit of that send to big reverb to put it bit deeper in mix ambience. I bet some of you all recognize this drums, right? For this record we decided to use drums from my metal mixing guide number 4, which is Behemoth style mix. Because of the fact that this drum tone model was linked with its master processing pretty hard, I used to do one common thing and integrate most of old mastering model to this project and mix other parts of mix through it. It's been kind of challenge, but I did some nice ass tricks here with pre-master processing, which we'll talk about closer to the end of guide. Speaking of drums, they're a superior drummer combined with 2 additional trigger instruments done by Steven Slate Drums 4, so let's check them samplers first. Metal Foundry library here. I'm gonna click on every element of kit now so you can check out names of samples used in this window. Watch that shit. As you can see, there is no any inserts here, cause we're gonna process it externally, and for this purpose we use multi-out mode, which means that every mic or group of mix goes to its own output. Names of channels outside of sampler are similar to names inside, so these 3 kicks routed to SD kick channel outside of Superior. Same story with 4 snare drum channels, all of them routed to SD snare channel. Hi-hat has its own hi-hat channel. 3 rag toms goes to rag toms channel. Same thing with pair of floor toms. Booth of overheads channels routed to 1 overheads channel outside of sampler. And rest of 4 room channels are routed to similar named channels outside of this joint. Just as always, I go nuts with setting up them bleed settings of each channel, but there's just too much of them shits to demonstrate, so you'll find this preset at the additional files. There you will also find this custom drum map, which I wrote specially for this kit, and it contains every single articulation for every drum. SSD kick trig channel. Kick 10 NRG here. Room mic is turned off, and here comes little last trick. What I wanted from this trigger is strong low end attack supportion to main kick, and for this purpose I used internal envelope processing to cut that sustain. Check this out. SSD snare trig channel. Black Beauty 6.5 snare here. Room and overheads is disabled, so we only have snares mix here. Speaking of routing, SD kick is routed to drums bus. SSD kick trigger channel routed to limiter bus, which is latest part of my master processing. This way I keep it uncompressed, but because of that I used to write volume automatization for this channel, so when it play fast volume automatically drops from -2 to -9 or even more decibels to avoid of outstanding lows, because you know that when kick plays fast, they start to stacking and you get low end resonance, so don't forget about it if you're going to use this template. SD snare and SSD snare trigger are both routed to snare some bus, and that bus routed to drums bus. Rack and floor toms routed to toms level bus. It was marked as level bus because I don't have any processing on it, just wanted to decrease level of toms a bit without touching toms channels cause that shit could affect post fader plugins. Hi-hat and overheads goes to drums bus. And finally therefore motherfuckers goes to ambience bus and that bus goes to drums bus which goes to pre-master bus also. So let's start from kick. These three equalizers here is general shapes to get correct timbre and make our kick cleaner, so because of the fact that I already explained them in Behemoth's guide, I'm not gonna go in depth for them, so I'll just on and off them. Try to concentrate on tonal difference when I do this. Notice output level on this EQ, I did this to get correct incoming level on NLS at the end. SSL compressor gives it some of that nice ass breath, especially when it comes to double kick parts. NLS at the end. Notice that we use stereo mod, which means that left and right channels is processed by different spikes, and because of a little different in saturation of them, we get our kick bit out of center, so it's not kind of dead mono anymore. Send to big reverb. SSD kick trigger. First thing here is C4 multiband compressor. This thing here to get control on stacking lows, so only low-end band is enabled. Attack is about 80 milliseconds and because of internal envelope processing of slate, we get compression on lows only when it comes to fast kick drum parts and lows begins to stacking. In case of single kick it stays pretty much uncompressed. Second plugin is NLS channel. Maximum drive with compensated output to give it really much of that distortion. You already know that mic mode is all about that low end, so we really get that low ass punch. Also using stereo mode, which means that we move our kick out of center. With this amount of drive it becomes pretty obvious. Check this out. EQ to reduce that whistly high-end resonance and also decrease low-end boomy rings. And finally T-Rack's classic clipper. This thing gives us even more distortion and also limit kick's dynamics. It's extremely important, because we don't want it to affect final limiter and provide pumping and unwanted distortion of the entire thing. Superior snare channel. First thing here is an EQ, general complex timbre shape with boosted lows and highs, plus couple of drops and problem zones which started to sound like a problem after applying this kind of boost on highs, and we also get rid of snares, resonances and boxy mids. Check that shit. Next thing is pair of SSL compressors. Just a small trick here for y'all. When you need a lot of compression, it's better to put pair of compressors and let each one of them do half the level reduction work. Basically there is not really a half, but anyways, fuck is this, algebra? Fuck this shit. Let's hit them compressors and see what them do. There is about 8 dB of total compression, but you can notice that these two make it pretty transparent way. Next thing, envelope shaper. Compressor brought up too much of that sustain, there is too much of that shit, so we use this joint to limit its length and get tight and short sound as a result. Check that shit. Next EQ here to get rid of them high-end clicky shits and also midrangy rings. NLS at the end. Speaking of sends, there is send to parallel compression bus, so let's check what this shit is. That's how it sounds soloed. When it comes to mixing this sound with main snare, it gives it really nice midrangy texture. Check this out. First thing in chain, CLA 76 compressor, ALL mode and extreme attack and release settings really saturates the fuck out of this thing. Exactly what I wanted. Professionals calls this thing as ineffective fucked up speaker or some shit. Nice underground on mids though. Right after we have this EQ, which cuts out highs and also body resonance of snare. Check this shit. NLS at the end. After all of this stuff it goes to snare some bus, which we'll go for right after this one. Slate's trigger snare. First thing, SSL compressor with about 5 decibels of compression. Next one is an EQ, which cuts out them highs to avoid of too clicky attack. Now these 3 channels goes to snare some bus and that's what happens here. EQ smoothen up them highs and reduce ringy resonances at mids. As I already said, this bus routed to drums bus. And there is also send to big reverb bus. Toms. Let's start from floor. First thing in chain, EQ. As you can see, we deal with them low-end outstanding zones and rings, boost them highs a bit and cut out clicky presence zone to make it smoother in context of mix. NLS at the end. Rag toms. Same EQ here, because of the fact that rag toms are higher, there is same processing model, but now problem zones exist in mids and we don't want that low end, there is just nothing useful here. SSL compression for some breath to toms. NLS at the end. Sends to big reverb on booth of toms channels with almost equal amount. Hi-hat. Nothing special, just an EQ with low cut filter to get rid of unwanted lows. Overheads. First thing in chain, EQ. Low cut filter and high-end boost. CLA 76 compressor to give it some breath and air. I don't know why, but every time I apply compression on overheads, to me it starts to sound more natural. Check this out and try to focus your hearing on snare. They kind of sit at the space where they should be. NLS at the end. Ambience. Most of Ambience channels stays unprocessed, except for this one. Check it out. Sounds weird though, but check it out in context of whole Ambience bus. Can you hear that something? It's kind of what I hear on lots of real drums recordings, they just not so clean. Like really, this damaged channel adds specific kind of character and bring life to the ambience. So what makes it so amazing? This envelope shaper, check this out. As you can see, it randomly reacts to louder peaks and pass quieter just as they are. It's damn weird, but for some reason I just like that. Right after we have this EQ with decreased midrange resonances for snare and also smoothen up that clicky high end, because obviously we've get a lot of clicks here after envelope shaper. NLS at the end. Now all of these 4 channels goes to Ambience bus. First thing here is CLA 76 compressor, which works in ALL mode and give it lots of distortion and compression. Y'all already know how it works. Next 3 EQs here to make sound smooth on highs, on lows, and also make it more neutral on mids. You can see that last one have boosted output for stronger incoming signal to NLS, which we have at the end. Drums bus. First thing here is CLA76 compressor. You can see that it affected mostly by a snare, so it's kind of glue it with rest of drum kit. Isotope exciter for bright tape saturation. This thing helps to our drums being heard in mix. As you can see, we use multi-band mode with same amount of distortion on each band. This way we won't get whole thing oversaturated if let's say lows will stack bit too much. Crammer tape. Really nice tape saturation from here, but this time we're not going for distortion, cause this thing gives us just a bit of that flutter and smoothness. And the last thing is SSL compressor, which glue whole drum kit together, and now it's ready to face that mix. Speaking of space, processing model is pretty simple. We have couple of sends to this big reverb bus, which is our actual reverb in this mix, so this thing is responsible for space part of our mix. That's how it sounds soloed. Here's the settings. Right after we have this little EQ which cuts out unwanted lows to avoid of frequency conflicts with other elements of mix. After all of this, it goes to pre-master bus, and before we'll finally go for it, take a look on them levels and panning settings for the entire mix one more time. So here we go with most interesting part. As I said, I used to teleport drums processing model and also big part of old master chain here to save the drum tone. I used to work through it, which is not really hard, because you already know what's going on in the mix. You can hear it's like a pre-final result and get correct levels easily. There is two problems with the shit. First one, when you start to add something, you must always understand what happens inside of the mix. You must be extremely damn curious about things that happens before master processing, so if I add let's say big fat ass bass, I can easily make it too loud and don't even notice it because of all of these compressors and stuff, but I can notice that it can start to hide other parts of mix. It can start conflict with them, so I used to be extremely careful with it. You must notice these kind of interactions. Second problem is timbres. Pair of matching EQs shapes the tone pretty hard, so you can't really say how your guitars will sound through these filters. So I decided to customize one of my mix-ready tones to have correct timbre through this master. Speaking of bass, same story as with guitars, and you could actually hear how I did it and why EQ was uncommonly extreme sometimes. Main goal for bass is to keep that low end flat, so first thing, you need to be sure that your source bass don't have resonates or drops in low end zone, and second you need to watch your master and see how it will affect low end timbre, and then do the opposite on bass inside of the mix. Speaking of routing, I have part of old processing on these two buses, and what I really did for my new master is this bus called limiter, because it really contains only matching EQ and limiter. So everything but kick trig goes to pre-master bus, that bus goes to master bus, and this master bus goes to limiter. If you want explanation of processing of these, go visit Ending of Metal Mixing Guide number 4. So before we'll finally go for it, let me show you that kick trigger trick. We have pair of compressors on pre-master bus, also pretty complex timbre shape and stuff, so check out what's going on with mix if I route it to pre-master bus. You can hear that it totally disappeared and also started to pump mix a bit. I'd wanted it to be more powerful and loud, but if I'll start boosting this channel, it won't be really louder, but will pump the shit out of mix even more, so that's why it's routed straight to limiter bus. It just stays untouched, and when added to other parts of mix, it's always stable. So let's do the shit. First thing in chain is NLS bus. You already know this thing, don't you? SSL compressor with bit of compression on it. First, matching EQ. Just as always, I'll put these matching sessions at the attachment, so you can recreate this curves if you use other DAW. Next, EQ fixes matching boost artifact at 16 kHz. Isotope major to get correct processing on next plugin. Isotope exciter. You can see that amount of saturation for last band has been reduced, because I don't want this zone be oversaturated. Second, of old EQ matching modules. Now it goes to master bus, and first thing here is a isotope major. This time it's all about regular stereo correction. EQ smoothly smoothen up that presence, which will be recovered in next plugin and final limiter bus. Multi-bin compressor for separate compression of lows and highs. And next EQ here to erase unwanted lows from the side of stereo. Now limiter bus. First and the only thing I added is this third matching module for end result timbre correction. Check this out. And right after this joint we have Pro L limiter with these settings. So that's how it's done. For those of you who want to get an additional files pack for this guide, which includes pack of bias presets, Cubase project, pack of matching sessions for Isotope Ozone, pack of Pro Q presets for those who use different DAW, guitar impulse used in this guide, custom drum map and also preset for Superior Drummer, you will find all of them sheets in my private post on Patreon, which will be available after pledging $1. By doing this you will also get access to rest of my private content and help me keep doing what I do. Link is in the description. Hope you learned thing or two from this guide. See you next time.